Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla and let's go over the market. Let's figure out what the hell happened to Tesla today, severely underperforming the market. And yeah, let's just talk about it and figure it out and try to figure out what's happening next. So all that being said and done, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button as it does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live with the link down below in the description. For $3 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, updates, etc. on Tesla as it's moving throughout the day and trading and whatnot. So with that being said and done though, let's jump into it. So Tesla, unfortunately, with a pretty decent underperformance with a 3.2% down day, closing at $253 or just above $253 per share compared to the market, pretty much flat. Definitely not a great day for Tesla, right? This is a pretty horrendous day, but there's still some silver lining. This is why yesterday's videos, I titled it like, oh, Tesla's still overall bullish. However, right? And this is the however part because, we were approaching a very crucial area, and that's kind of where we went to today, right? We went pretty much almost exactly to my target today, right? I talked about that 265 target for a long time. I thought it'll happen next week, honestly, but here we are this week. We pretty much went almost exactly on the dot. Like the high of the day was 265.13, right? 265 and 13 cents, right? That's pretty much the high of the day. We tapped at the top of it almost exactly, and we obviously rejected substantially too. Honestly, a lot more than I expected. I don't think this rejection, at least today, would be this substantial. But sometimes the market will always surprise you with its moves. Now, with that being said, like I said, overall, there's still some good news here, right? It's not like it's all over. It's not like everything's horrendous now. But we'll go over both of them. So let's talk about the good news. Let's talk about what the both still have, to look forward to, right? Because again, it's not all doom and gloom just yet. So first and foremost, we did close a little bit on thin ice, right? Not the most convincing close in the entire world at this, just barely above 253 here, right? So not convincing, not a very convincing close, but arguably we are still technically in this ascending wedge, right? Now I said many times how more often than not these ascending wedges break downwards, right, to the downside, and if we do happen to break this to the downside, I think that will bring us down to the very low 240s or the very high 230s, which is first roughly where the 240s is where the 21 EMA is, right? The 100-day moving average is going to be pretty much at almost exactly 240. If we do break down below this, right, I do think that we will be headed for, again, the low 240s to the very, very high 230s, which again is essentially going to be nothing more. Let me zoom out here quickly. Nothing more than really just a retest of this overall breakout, which some people have said that we've already retested it on the drop that we had a few days ago. I personally don't see it. The way I look at it is we haven't retested it because this to me is the bull flag. And in my opinion, and just in my opinion, we haven't truly retested it. Just my opinion. Which again, if we do break to the downside of this ascending wedge that we are in, which essentially is pretty much right around this 253-ish, 254-ish level. Like if we don't recapture it tomorrow, if tomorrow is not a green day, or like at the very least close a green, and ideally above 254, things get spooky. Now, I say that with a grain of salt a little bit, and the reason for that is simple because, well, the following trading day, because don't forget Monday's closed, Tuesday is also the day Tesla is going to be releasing their delivery and production numbers for obviously Q4, which also gives us the full number for the year of 2023. Massive numbers, right? And that can dictate quite a bit. That can pull. I don't think it will pull as necessarily on Netflix, where Netflix, for instance, again, I bring this up for a very obvious reason because things can change like this, like just with the snap of a finger. But this was Tesla or Netflix, right? Again, massive channel, kind of like what we were in, massive channel, broke down. Also, we have broken down, and it looked bearish. I mean, excuse me. This is how Netflix's candle looked like right before this massive gap up post earnings. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like this. I'm not to this level, of course, right? This was a pretty substantial gap up. I mean, this was a gap up of like what? How much? About like a 16% gap up, which is substantial. But the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that it looked extremely bearish. It looked extremely grim. And then all it took was a nice piece of good news catalyst that propelled it further and eliminated so much of the bearish thesis that it looked bearish here. Like it looked really questionable, right? Like very up in the air. And in my opinion, Tesla is kind of looking, again, not the exact same, but somewhat similar. Just food for thought. Now, the reason I bring that up is because, again, all it takes is a catalyst. Sometimes all it takes is a catalyst. Now, this catalyst can be something that actually, in turn, actually brings us down to that 240 level. I have no idea. If you have insider information or if you have a crystal ball, my DMs are open on Twitter X. Please let me know. But unless you have one of those, no one knows for sure, right? But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that if we break, essentially really like truly break below this ascending wedge, I think 240s are next. I think we'll come back to 240s, high 230s, retest this overall bull flag breakout, which again, we're still in this breakout. I know sometimes it looks grim and days like today just are looking really questionable and kind of concerning, and they kind of are. We're still technically in a massive breakout. On the weekly, it looks a little more clean, right? We're still in a massive breakout. So far, printing a pretty horrendous looking weekly candle, but tomorrow we can change that still. So we'll see how tomorrow plays out. But again, I think that's what's going to happen if that were to be the case. We pretty much come back down to retest this bull flag breakout, which in my opinion, we haven't, especially on the weekly. So that is what I would see happening there. Now, let's say we don't. Let's say we do hold 254, and let's say maybe it is great news, the delivery news, and we do rally off of that. That's when I believe we will break above 265, and I think we'll have a phenomenal January. But let's talk more about why I think this. So let's look at something like the 15-minute chart first. This is the short term, right? This is pretty much telling me pretty much tomorrow. Ideally, what can we expect tomorrow? Severely oversold. I started using the stochastic indicator as well. I just pulled it up, but stochastic it's kind of similar to RSI, at least in this sense that I'm using it, where pretty much every indicator right now on the 15-minute chart, 1.5, is very oversold. RSI, oversold. MACD, just severely oversold. Stochastic, severely oversold. Like everything is just substantially oversold, right? So take that into consideration, right? Whenever the stochastic gets to these really, really oversold territories, we're arguably even more oversold than any of these ones back here, right? It pretty much has jumped up at least fairly decently not too much longer after. Again, I'm just a messenger, right? Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. But that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully my camera's not blocked. My camera's actually blocking it slightly. Let me move my camera up here for now so you can see it a little bit better. I'll put it like this. Right? As you can see down over here, we are severely oversold, right? Oversold here, oversold on all three of these indicators. And again, like I said, every time we've been this oversold, especially on the stochastic, we have seen a pretty, respectable bounce from there. So we'll see if that ends up being the case once again over here. On top of that, if we zoom in a little bit more and we zoom in like this as well, right? We can remove the stochastic for now, but taking a look at the RSI, we have a hidden bullish divergence where essentially, you can see here, we're making lower lows on the RSI, but the stock itself is not making lower lows compared to here. So you can see here, these two major areas right here, right? Massive, we set a low here and had a massive rally. This was the low on the RSI, which was pretty much somewhere around this kind of, 31.5-ish level. Now we're making a higher low on the stock, which is good, but the RSI is doing the opposite, right? It's actually doing the literal opposite. So, that's potentially a good hidden bullish divergence right there. So let's, in case you haven't seen hidden bullish divergence, these are always the most confusing. Why is it doing that? Hidden bullish divergence. I don't know why it gave me this weird thing, but let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and do this. Right, boom. Right, hidden bullish divergence, prices making higher lows, which is exactly what we're doing here. We're making a higher low so far. We're making a higher low so far, while this oscillator, or in this case, the RSI, is doing quite literally the opposite. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. We'll see if that actually plays out. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. Who knows? No one knows for sure, but it is just something to consider, right? And we also have that potentially happening on the 65-minute or 1-hour chart, where we're also obviously making, compared to, let's say, this low back here to this one right here, right? We're also making higher lows, again, on Tesla, higher lows, right? Even if you want to compare to this one, technically making higher lows still, technically. But as you can see over here, we're making lower lows on the RSI. So, there are some signs of a potential bottom-ish happening around this area, and especially considering we haven't really truly broken down out of this ascending wedge. Though again, like I always say, technically these ascending wedges more often than not do break down to the downside. Not always, but more often than not. So we'll see how that actually overall ends up playing out. Let me make sure I haven't really missed anything too important that I do really want to cover, but those are like the main things. Like those are by far the most important things to kind of understand, right? Obviously, if we look at something like, for instance, this, let's say 4-hour charts, right? The ideal scenario was the fact that, so we did break below this green line, which was kind of the end to this very short-term downtrend, which is unfortunate, hence the follow through on this on the selling, right? But we are, of course, at the 21, even on the 4-hour chart, which is good, right? On top of that, we did unfortunately break through this green kind of, rectangle, if you will, which was the area I really wanted us to defend, right? And it kind of looked like we were going to defend it, right? We came down here, we bounced up several times, and then unfortunately we couldn't keep it. But ideally, I did want to turn this into a support. We didn't. So that makes things a little more complicated and a little more confusing. So it's kind of not the best thing in the world. But We are at the 21 EMA on the 4-hour chart, so there's a place to bounce. This also would be not a horrible place roughly to do it. So again, shorter time frame that tells me about pretty much tomorrow's price action. We're just oversold, like really, really oversold, which personally I'm expecting a bounce. Personally, I want to see a green day tomorrow. I want to see a hold above 254 tomorrow to maintain within this ascending wedge and to really keep the kind of hope alive, if you will, for Tuesday coming up, with the delivery numbers to give us that catalyst potential to rally up even further. Obviously, it can also be the opposite and can be what brings us down to the 240s. But regardless of what happens, this is why I'm saying Tesla overall still looks bullish. However, the however part is the short term, because that short term is the however if we come down to the, let's say, 240 rough area. But even if we do that, I still think Tesla's overall very, very bullish because, like I said many, many times, we still have broken out of this bullish flag. We haven't retested it on the weekly, so there's a very real possibility that that's the first thing that happens. We come down, retest that, kind of come in line with this 21 EMA as well, which will pretty much be putting us at, let's say, sometime next week, like the very, very high 230s to the very, very low 240s. We'll just say 240, give or take a few dollars. And that, to me, can potentially be the retest on the weekly that can potentially give us that bounce that we need to continue up even further as we kind of recoup, reiterate, kind of, not reiterate, but, reassess the situation almost and kind of, get that ignition going and get ready for the true bounce to really break above pretty much about 265, which is the most important level to break, because that's not an easy level to break. We're not just going to casually have 7 green weekly candles in a row and just break above it, right? It's not unexpected or unheard of to find some issues and resistance here at, again, probably the most important level to break for Tesla in years. So that's the way I'm looking at it, and that's kind of the way I'm seeing it right now. Options flow, let's take a quick look at options flow here, see what's happening. Pretty much the whole day I've just been seeing a constant flow of calls, like even before this massive sell-off, like even before, while we were only down like 1%, and I'm still seeing this, like there's calls here, 800K premium, 800K premium, 75, I mean, very much in the money, but nonetheless, calls coming in here, very safe, but, not super long-term, but very, very, very much in the money, right? But, pretty decent premium, almost $1 million. We have another 500K almost one here for 230 calls expiring February. We have some shorter-term one, 1.1 million, 265 calls expiring January 5th, right? Not too far out. So there's a lot of, the bulls are stepping in, man. There are some puts here, but nowhere near as much as the amount of calls I'm seeing, especially with the amount of premium I'm seeing here at least. So the bulls are stepping in, man. They really are stepping in. They're buying this dip. They're expecting a rally. And I have to, as weird as it is, I have to agree. Like, again, things can change for the worse pretty quickly. So we'll see, of course, how tomorrow closes. I think tomorrow will be pretty important, but even more important will be Tuesday. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's kind of the overall general idea that I am seeing and how I, expect things to go and play out relative onto which levels we hold, break, etc. And if, we happen to break or, above a certain level, where I expect it to go. So that's kind of the overall picture I'm seeing. Now, another thing to note, the final thing to note, in my opinion at least, is pretty much ever since this massive rally, we had this massive fake out, right? Remember here, this massive fake out, and then we had a beautiful, beautiful rally. Let me remove these indicators, not this indicator, sorry, the 21 images, so it's not too messy. And I should remove this too. This looks a little messy too, I don't like that. Remember we had this massive fake out, and then we had this, pretty much beautiful hammer candle, which constituted into this beautiful move up. Well, one thing to note is the fact that we had beautiful volume on these 2 days. And ever since then, as we've been essentially going sideways, right? We had, ups and downs. We went a little bit low, then we went a little bit high, but ultimately we've been going sideways. If you actually like zoom in onto this, we've pretty much been just going sideways, right? We've been just zigzagging within this overall range for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 trading days roughly, right? 8 candles, 8 trading days. The volume has been getting lower and lower and lower, lower and lower and lower, right? Today is obviously a little bit higher than yesterday, but the trend is clear. We've been pretty much overall trending down in volume as we've been pretty much going sideways. That is usually a good sign in this case because it's happening after a run-up. Usually after you get a run-up and then you kind of go sideways, you consolidate, kind of just zigzag up and down roughly within the same price range, pretty much as we've been doing. If the volume starts to decrease, that usually implies that there is a breakout that's imminent. And, again, like I said, with something like the delivery report coming out pretty soon, the timing is pretty interesting to say the least. And I still think overall Tesla looks bullish. Obviously, if we start falling back into this bull flag, that's when this bullish thesis really starts to kind of crumble and it's not looking as good as it used to. But just take that into consideration as well, in my opinion. That's just kind of what I am seeing. And even on such a massive red day, the volume is nowhere near as much as what we had back when we had the massive green days. So yeah, I don't know. something about this feels weird. I personally wouldn't be surprised if this is just another like some liquidity trap or just, I don't know, something. It's just something about this feels really strange. But anyways, that's kind of what I'm seeing, and that's kind of what I am noticing. So with all that being said and done, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.